Thank you everyone for joining us, and welcome to the ESEA and the NEA-SN Endorsed CCSD Candidate Forum. My name is Jan Giles, and I am the interim president of ESEA, the Education Support Professionals Association for the Clark County School District ESP Union. And
I'm Carmen.
And
I'm Carmen Andrews, and I'm the vice president of NEA of Southern Nevada. And tonight the format will be simple. We'll have a question, and then each candidate will have an opportunity to answer. We will randomize who speaks first each time, so each candidate will have an opportunity to go first. We'll also be taking questions in the comment box. We have solicited questions from members prior to the event, and we will try to get everyone's question in the allotted time this evening. We will now introduce each candidate, and after we've introduced them, we'll let them have a minute for opening comments where they can say why they're running, and we'll then start the questions after that. So first we have Lisa Guzman from District A.
Sorry. So my name is Lisa Guzman, and I am running in District A, and you may know me as the NSEA Assistant Executive Director, and I'm also the ESEA Executive Director, and I'm really excited to be here tonight, and I hope to win your vote.
Thank you very much. And we also have Jeff Profit, who is running in District B.
Yep, guys, thanks for having this forum. As all of us know, it's a little bit difficult to get out there and talk to the voters, talk to, especially your members. Just in a brief introduction, my name is Jeff Profit. Currently I am the business manager of Sheet Metal Local 88. And my background, and the reason why I'm getting into this race is because for the last 20 years of my career, other than being the business manager lately, the last couple of years, I've been in the education portion of our union, our trade school. And through that trade school, we've interacted with CCSD, tried to grow the CTE programs in the trades. Some successful, some fails, just trying to bring a consistency across the board. And then I am from MOAPA, so I'd like to be there to represent the rural schools, not just here in MOAPA, but all the way around the edge.
Okay, thank you guys. So here's our first question, and Lisa will have the honor of answering.
Alexis is also here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh my gosh, and I'm like jumping ahead because I'm nervous. So Alexis Salt from District E, like I've only known Alexis forever. So Alexis, last but not least.
Hi, I'm Alexis Salt, and I just started my 15th year teaching in the Clark County School District. I'm running for school board trustee because there seems to be a lot of question about what an education expert is, and lots of different people who like to claim that title is an expert in education, when we all know that the people who are true experts in education are the people who are in the buildings doing the work. I'm running to bring a teacher perspective, but also a student and a parent perspective to the dais. I would love your support. You can visit alexissalt.com to learn more about me. Thank you.
Thanks, Alexis, and sorry about that. And just so everyone knows that we did invite Tamika Henry, and she had a conflict tonight. The RJ is interviewing different people, and tonight was her night. So we understand. She may try to drop in later, but just so you know, she was invited. So first question, and Lisa, you will have the honor of answering first, and then we'll go to Jeff and then to Alexis. So the CCSD has approximately 60,000 families not connected via Chromebook, internet, etc. Kids in our poorest zip codes will be behind getting started, and many of them probably were already behind. There are obvious shortfalls in the system. How would you propose that we could change that and make it better for our most vulnerable students?
Thank you for that question. So when I took a look at the Nevada Connects, which is the group that is behind making sure that the students receive surfaces and that they're Wi-Fi connected, I took a look to see there's also technical difficulties with the Nevada Connect. And so I would definitely make sure that I knew exactly what schools were having issues and try to reach out. I know that there are a couple of administrators that have already started to do that. And watching their innovation, and I would want to bring that to the dais to see if we could do it district-wide, because what they're doing is they're individually going to the parent's home and trying to assist them. And I think that if we got volunteers to assist with that, you know, at the schools, I think that would help. It's really difficult to get to the individual students based on what we know. And so I would do my best to figure out how to find them, because that's also an issue that we're having.
Thank you for that. Jeff, same question.
Okay. I want to, back up to when this all started. I want to give, it's pretty easy to jump on the CCSD, is all wrong bandwagon. But on this one, I want to give them a little bit of credit. The amount of Chromebooks and where they went from nothing to where they're at right now, there's a lot of hard work that went into that, to just procure hundreds of thousands of Chromebooks and do it in the amount of time that they have done it. I want to give them a little bit of credit for that. But we've got to continue, and it seems like it's on a school-by-school basis to get out into their neighborhoods. They all have been given a list, and it's not gonna be easy. You got to go, just like you said, door to door. But I do like the community groups that are getting involved this weekend. There's a lot of community groups. I think there's the Hispanic Caucus is going to be out on Saturday. It's going to be a community effort to go door to door, because the lesser of us that don't have access to this kind of stuff, you're going to have to bring them in and get them that stuff. But it's going to have to be a community effort, and I like what's going on.
Thank you. Alexis?
Yeah, so I think we're doing a really good job of getting technology into the people that we think need it. So I worked at a Title I school for a long time, and one thing we were really good at was deploying resources. And I think that those schools that we would look at as traditionally needing help are doing a really good job of that. Where I'm concerned is that I see a lot of need in non-traditional places. So I see a lot of need in schools where maybe up until 6 months ago, a food bank or needing technology from a school is not something that would have ever crossed any of these families' minds. And because of that, I see staff that they're not used to having to rapidly deploy these types of resources. And I think that we really need to wrap our arms around those schools, the Beltway schools, where we look at and we say, okay, these are traditionally the schools we look at as not needing help. And I think they do need help. I know my daughter attends Levitt, which is not a school that you would think of as people traditionally needing a lot of help in that regard. And I know many of her classmates have not had some access, or her friends have struggled with access and with internet. I also think we need to look at what is being taught in a digital format, especially with the older kids. Right now, if they don't see what we're teaching as having value, it's very much easier for them to tune out. So I think that we need to take a double-handed approach there. We need to really make sure that we're connecting with our kids and that what we're teaching them has that sort of intrinsic value that they see, and reaching out to our schools that maybe don't have those rapid deployment, facilities and procedures and protocols in place.
Thank you. Jan?
Okay, the next question order will be Jeff, Alexis, and Lisa. And the question is, our education support professionals have been on the front lines of this pandemic since the beginning in March. Unfortunately, whether it was the unemployment issue or the CCSD reopening plan, we've been left out. As a trustee, do you, how will you make sure that education support professionals are a focus of everyday decision making so they get the attention they deserve and the recognition?
There's so many aspects of the support professionals that need to be taken care of. That, you know, we could go on all night about that. There should have never been a need there, or there should have never been a drop off there at all. There's not one person in CCSD that we can lose, or couldn't be doing something right now to help the cause. Whether it be cleaning the buildings or getting ready for whatever's coming next, assisting teachers with what they've got to go on, whatever needs to be done. They should have been taken care of the whole time, and they're going to be more important going forward when we start to transition back to traditional, whatever that's going to look like here in the future. They need to be brought back in and be given what they deserve.
Great, thank you. Alexis?
Absolutely. I would like to form several advisory boards or committees, one specifically for ESPs. That can be achieved through policy. We can write that as policy, and if we can get 4 votes, we can pass it. I would like to tie the superintendent's evaluation, or at least part of his or her evaluation, to their commitment to meeting with those advisory boards and how much they listen to those advisory boards. So of course, under that model, you know, a superintendent sometimes is going to go against what the board says, or you know, maybe come up with his or her own ideas. But I think we can add a rubric into their evaluation as to how much they meet with them, how much people on that board feel heard, how many of the suggestions that board makes do, you know, find its way into CCSD policy, because I really think that the only way to get central office to listen to people on the ground is to write it into policy so airtight that they cannot not do so.
Great, thank you. Lisa?
So this is something that's near and dear to my heart, because I took it very personally when the ESPs were almost shunned during this time, because the food service workers were out there making sure that people were fed from the time that the schools closed all the way through the summer. Our custodians were out there, and they were cleaning each one of the schools, making sure that people could re-enter the buildings. It was a really big deal that the district did not pay attention to the ESPs. And I know that this is a communications problem, and that communications didn't see ESPs as important as they truly are. And I agree with Alexis that this should be a policy issue to make sure that all the groups are considered equal. I think that too often within the Clark County School District, we take the ESPs for granted, and they shouldn't be. They care just as much as everyone else about the kids. That's why they're there, and they are putting their heart and soul into everything that they do. So I think that there should be policy to make sure that when communications put something out on behalf of the superintendent, or just generally from the district, that they include ESP.
Great, thank you.
Okay, next question. Alexis, you'll have the opportunity to answer first, and then Lisa, and then Jeff. Funding is an obvious issue in Clark County and Nevada as a whole, and SB 543 intends to change the Nevada funding formula from the Nevada plan that we've had for such a long time to a pupil-centered funding model. What are your thoughts on the bill, and would you like to see any portion of it changed before implementation?
So I think this, I'm always so bad with keeping the NEA or the bill number straight. That's the one that gets rid of Zoom and Victory, right?
Alex?
So
and I will promise you right now that I will keep a cheat sheet of all of these bills next to my computer. So
they change every 2 years anyway, so it's hard to keep. So SB 543 is what's replacing the Nevada plan. It will transfer everything from the Nevada plan to a pupil-centered funding plan.
Okay.
There are implications for Zoom and Victory in it, in that it will, instead of changing them from schools, it'll change it to services.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I know that we need to make sure that Zoom and Victory are protected. And I work at a rural. And so whenever we have funding like changes, it's always a little nerve-wracking because when you work at a rural school, I can tell you the way that we're funded, if we move to an entirely per pupil, we would have 2 teachers. And I mean that we have 227 students from top to bottom. So we get really nervous whenever there's changes to the funding formula. I want to make sure that we are protecting services like Zoom and Victory. I've worked with students who have gone through Zoom and Victory, and I can tell you, when you put them in classrooms of their peers who have not gone through these programs, there is a definite difference. You can definitely tell the kids who have had the access to expanded curriculum. So I'm always leery. We need to change the way that our schools are funded in Nevada. We need to there's definite changes that need to happen, but if they're messing with things like Zoom and Victory and other important programs, I think that would need to be amended.
Okay, Lisa?
So, SB 543 is affectionately called Freeze and Squeeze in the Nevada State Education Association where I work. And there's a reason for it, even though it's going to fund the Clark County School District, and I think they should receive that funding because 70% of the students that are not funded now will be funded through SB 543. But it also creates an unfair factor for the rest of the state. So I think that 543, the way that it funds Clark County School District, make sure that it will have funding for their students, but I would like to have funding for all students. And so I think that just changing Zoom and Victory to programs instead of whole schools is another issue that I have, because it doesn't allow for all students to get the great teaching that goes along with those programs. And so I think that it needs to definitely be fixed. I think that the thought process was a good one for the Clark County School District, but I think we need to be aware that there are other districts other than the Clark County School District.
Thank you. Jeff?
I'm just going to add on to some of the things that were said by both of them. When it comes in, especially with what Alexis says with the rural schools, they lumped us all in. They lumped the rural schools, Moapa, Virgin Valley, and my district, in with the urban schools. We would like to see that move to the rural model and the rural funding formula, because that's a different formula, like Lisa was talking about. Clark County we would be the third largest rural school district if we were just by ourselves. So I think that needs to be changed. Zoom and Victory need to be protected. That's not something that needs to go away. And then one thing I would like, and another part of that, and I don't think it's part of that law, is that we need to stop one count per year is not enough. We know that the charter schools, and they're counting them, they do their counts maybe 3-4 times a year. Our kids come in, they get counted. I think count day's coming up pretty quick. And then what happens is that, you have parents that choose to go to a charter school, they choose to do homeschool, and they realize that isn't for them. And then they come back into our system, and we're that funding isn't there for them. And then like Alexis was talking about, and Lisa both, it needs to be funded for students in Clark County, because we do have a lot of homeschool and kids that are out there, but then they're using the services of our district through sports, band, whatever it is. There either needs to be a paying system, or something needs to be done with that funding formula where they get paid for that school, where the student can actually use the services and not be a drag on the system.
Okay, thank you.
So the next question order will be Lisa, Jeff, and Alexis. And the question is regarding AB 469, which passed in 2017. and still remains an issue here in 2020. What are your thoughts on the bill's efforts to decentralize CCSD and its impact that it's had on our district?
So that's a really good question, because AB 469, I think, has been interpreted in many different ways just to fit whatever principal or person wants to interpret it, right? So I think AB 469, what it wanted to do was to create little districts within the district. And each principal gets their own budget so that they can budget for the amount of staffing and supplies that they need. And it was what the thought process was, that it was going to create more equity throughout the district. Unfortunately, that's not what's happened. I think that it needs to be looked at again, because now what's happening is that central office employees that used to be central office employees are now attached to schools, and principals don't have the funding within their budgets to fund those the staffing. So there's a lot of issues with it, and I think that the thought process behind it was probably really good. But now that we see how it's affected the district, I think it needs to be looked at again.
Great, thank you. Jeff?
I think as a premise, I like it. And just like Lisa was saying, I think we need to build on that. And because there is some good pockets, I'm going to put Moab. I'll talk Moab up all day long. The administrators out here do a really good job of bringing the community together, working together, and the SOT works. What I would like to build on, I think that needs to be brought in, where more administrators need to be taught some small town values about communicating with their neighborhoods, but that's a different subject. One thing I would like to do, we just started doing this investigation with a couple of our schools out here, is that they need to have transparency in what is being spent for them at the district. Every principal is dealing with this. They've got to go up, and they've got, they get so much taken from their budget for the power, water, and all that kind of stuff, but it's just a number. There's no receipt attached to it unless you do. You almost have to put a request for information, as far as legal rights, to get the actual bill. And the reason why we started noticing some discrepancies is because we went, they gave us the list, and it was Nevada Power. Well, we're not under Nevada Power, so how do we get a Nevada Power bill? We're under Overton Power. So we wanted to see, and when we started seeing that, we started seeing that there was, there was a pretty big discrepancy of what we were being charged and what we should have been charged. So I think there needs to be a little bit more transparency in that process. But I think that as a whole, I think it's something that could be built on going forward.
Great, thank you. Lexus?
So I think one of the big reasons that this was able to gain traction and pass is because people are fundamentally leery of the school district. It's been this way since I moved here 16 years ago. There seems to be this overwhelming feeling in this community that somehow CCSD can't be trusted. And as a result, there was this idea that we have to somehow decentralize it and break it up, and that things would function better if we did that. And I would like to get to the true root cause of that and create a functional government body that people have faith in, and then have the discussion as to what can be standardized across the district and what should be left up to individual principals. I have kind of a unique experience in CCSD because I've worked at a very tier 1, Title I inner city school. I worked there for 9 years. I've actually started at a suburban beltway school. And then I worked at one for another year. And then now I work out at a rural. There are certain things that my principal has to deal with working in Indian Springs that the principal of Centennial High School or Lead Middle School or Bilberry Elementary would never in a million years have to deal with, and vice versa. there are also things that we need to standardize across the district. My work expectations shouldn't look different if I work at Centennial or if I work at Indian Springs. So I think we need to really make a concerted effort to win back the trust of our community. And we do that with transparency. And we do that just by putting in the work and being a government agency, an entity that people feel like they can have faith in. And then we can have those difficult discussions.
Thank you.
Okay, AB 168 was about restorative justice discipline. And so wondering what your thoughts are on restorative justice, and with that disciplinary program that came in with AB 168, are there things that you would change, things that you would keep the same, anything along those lines with restorative justice? And sorry, this is Jeff, and then Alexis, and then Lisa.
Let me start off by saying, as a kid that, I spent a little time in the counselor's office. Let's not kid. If I never hear the words zero tolerance again, it will be too soon. So restorative justice, that's a big term for being, let's just call it being fair. Being fair to the person that is so-called in trouble, and seeing what's behind that person. I think that we need to continue this and bring it and be proud of it. That the individual that is acting out, however they're acting out, is doing it for a reason, and we need to find the cause, and we need them more training. We need more training from the top down. I think everybody that's involved with the school district, from trustee to the lowest level person, needs to have that training to say, hey man, look out for and not just that you have to go be a psychologist, but walk up to somebody and smile and see how they're doing, ask them how they're doing, even at that level. But I think we need to continue and keep going further.
Sorry, I lost where my unmute button was. Thank you. Alexis?
Yeah, I think that the single biggest thing we could do right now to give restorative justice a chance in our district is invest in real quality professional development for teachers, ESPs, and administrators. If you walked in, we have hundreds of schools in this valley, and if you walked into any one of them, restorative justice and PBIS is going to look a little bit different. And while in some ways that's appropriate, in other ways it's really not. We have some administrators who have spent lots of money getting, their staff trained, bringing in groups to talk to kids. Like I know where my daughter went to school, they had something called Challenge Day, which is something I would like to bring to the entire district. And then some schools, PBIS, I've literally seen PBIS look like every time a kid does something you want them to, you give them a Jolly Rancher. It's a sad situation when we're training kids like this is the dog whisperer. We need real on the ground, in person, professional development, and it needs to be done by people who know what they're talking about. And then we need to institute a zero tolerance policy amongst our teachers for not following it and our educational support professionals. But we can't hold people accountable when they don't know what it is that they're supposed to be doing. A lot of people have received maybe 20 minutes of training on restorative justice. Maybe they've taken a webinar. That is in no way, shape, or form enough. We have systematic injustices in this country, and it's going to take a lot more than a webinar to start dismantling the system that we have in this country. So we can really be leaders here in Clark County. And I see this as a way of getting really positive press for our district. Sometimes when you're starting at the bottom, like it's a great place to start because there's nowhere to go but up. And I feel like, we could be nationwide leaders in PBIS and restorative justice.
Sorry, I keep losing my unmute button. It's like it's underneath something else. So thank you. And last but not least on this one, Lisa.
Thanks. So I remember when this was Tyrone Thompson's bill, and it was a bill that I was really excited about because I wanted to create some professional development for our members around it, and then COVID hit. But what was interesting was after it was implemented and districts were putting out their own professional development, specifically Clark County, it was an online PD. And I asked the educators that were taking it how they felt about implementing restorative justice in their classrooms. And they told me that they could not wait until my professional development was created because what they learned online was not effective, and that they hoped that they were implementing it correctly, and they hoped that they were doing the right thing for kids. And I think that that's where we have to start, is we have to start with the professional development, because I do agree with Alexis, Clark County could be great with this. We have really great community groups that have come up with really wonderful trainings that could come in and help our educators, the education support professionals, and the teachers within the classrooms, but also the administrators. You know, the thing is that principals think that they know what restorative justice is, but they don't. And so they're winging it. And I just think that we need to stop winging it in Clark County and start doing it.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next order will be Alexis, Lisa, and then Jeff. And the question is, what would your top 3 goals during your first term be?
So my first goal, well, I'm going to count it as 2 because it's 2 different things. So I want to take a lot of what we do in-house, a lot of what we pay for, and bring it in-house. So that would fall under 2 main headings: professional development and testing. So I would really like to see, and curriculum, I would really like to see us hiring teachers to create PACER tests, to create curriculum, to create basically what I envision is a giant teachers pay teachers for the people, the educators of Clark County, except it's free. Everything's created with our community in mind. We create rich assessment that is worthwhile, that can give us good data. And we move that all in-house. The next, I would like to see us moving our professional development entirely in-house. Right now, we have this weird hybrid system where you have a CPD department, but they're mostly vetting outside stuff that we're bringing in. So they're not really creating a lot of the professional development you see. And when you do, it's very computerized, it's very like modularly, and that's not what we want. So we have a lot of teachers who are working 2nd and 3rd jobs, and I would love to bring those teachers in-house and have them develop our curriculum, our assessment, and our professional development. The third, I guess, would be those committees that I had talked about earlier. I would really like to see an ESP committee, a teacher committee, and a parent/community committee. And I would like to write into policy ways that people can apply to be on these committees and be voted on by their peers, because too often when we have a committee, I know on the teacher end, it is always the same person who gets put on the teacher committees. And if what they were saying was working, we would be all better. Like we keep asking the same people for the same advice, and we're wondering why we're not getting anything any different. So those, I think we could definitely accomplish through policy, and we could get those moving pretty quickly.
Great, thank you. Lisa?
So my 3 goals are a little different, but almost similar to Alexis. My first goal is I would like to create a better relationship with the unions that work within the district. I feel like there is an adverse feeling between the unions and their supervisors, right? So union members are afraid. They come and they tell us they can't even talk to their administrators. And I think that culture needs to change. And I would like to be able to help facilitate that change. And then by utilizing the unions more with decision-making processes, because if they see the unions as equals, then I feel like there'll be a shift. The second thing I'd like to take a look at is the budget. So there seems to be a feeling that the district misuses money. And I think that if we took a really good look, you know, at one point the district was putting on little snippets of YouTube videos about how budgets work. And I think I'd like to reestablish something like that comes from the dais that says we have to talk to the community about our budget, so that they can understand what's happening with the budget. I spoke with veterans yesterday who were really upset that ESAs were not passed in the legislature because they wanted to pull their children from the Clark County School District and have the $5,400 to go to a private school. And I had to explain to them that that money is important so that we can educate the students within Clark County, and that they would get the great education that they're wanting in the smaller class sizes if we funded education appropriately. But the community doesn't know that how we're not funding education. And then the third piece that I would really like is to bring more community groups into the district, because I really feel like in my district we have this really great community group that's I'm going to get it wrong now. It's 1865 No Racism or something like that. It's a great community group, and they could come in and teach our students about different things. And I just feel like in my district, I mean, that's the district that I know, I think that community group would be very beneficial. And I think we could do that throughout the district. Getting community groups involved in the district is a good thing, because then our students get to see and experience different folks.
Thank you. Jeff?
I think all of those are great ideas, but I think the most important thing that we could do first is to have a cohesive board that doesn't.
You're right.
You're right, Jeff. I can see.
Oh,
Yes, you're correct.
I'm pandering now. I'm pandering. I fully intend, you know, I'm going to take pride as being, I will be the only man on the board, and that has nothing to do with manhood, but it just, I'm looking forward to working with, you know, the ladies that are out there, even, you know, the ones that are not here that are running. I can see a lot of good going to happen in this next election, and a fresh perspective, maybe a smile on somebody's face, and, you know, that people can get along and get some things done. We may not always agree, but it's time to move forward. And we've got a lot, like Alexis said, when you're at the bottom, there's no place else but to go up. So there's a lot of things that are, you know, that can be happening on that board, and I'm looking forward to working with the people that are there. And obviously for me, it's the CTE programs. We were just, I'm a member of the Workforce Connections Board. We're working on what we call curriculum alignment, trying to bring businesses with trade schools, not just trade schools, but you know, fire, police, hotel administration, sports therapy, things like that. Man, we're trying to really do a big effort there when it comes to CTE programs. But I want to be the leader in that and bring the businesses. We're working with Lincoln Electric right now to support all of our welding programs across the district, not just in pockets, because, you know, again, out here in Moapa, we have a welding program, and they're very well funded out here, because I always bring stuff from the trades to them. So they always have good stuff out here. And I think every program needs to have what they have. So that's the big, and then I want to work on the other budget, and that doesn't get talked about a lot, and that's the construction budget. I think there's a lot of inefficiencies there. I think the way that we're building buildings, we're building some Taj Mahal buildings, but the techniques that they're using inside of those buildings are from the 1980s. We need to start building buildings that are more efficient, that our kids can learn on. They need to be buildings when you walk in the door that the building is teaching the student. If anybody wants to walk around our trade schools, with the minute you walk in the door, it's teaching you what the building is doing. And that's what CTE programs are all about. So they can be more efficient. And then obviously we need to work on our older buildings. With COVID-19, I think it's really accentuated how bad the ventilation system can be and how good it can be at stopping all of that stuff. And we've got programs that can do that. You know, and one thing I do want to hit on, and this is more Lisa's area, is that how much our maintenance crew is denied the work. We're paying outside contractors to come in to do work that they're more than qualified to do, and then they sit there and watch them. So we're paying 3 and 4 times more for what our own people can be doing. And like we were talking about with ESAs, we can have more people doing the work. Not to knock on the outside, you know, putting people out to work on the outside, but the school district needs to be better with its money. And I think that there's a big way to do that, to let our own people do the work.
Great, thank you.
So I think we're on day 9 of school, and many teachers began MAP testing today online with their students. While recognizing that this is not something that you all would be directly responsible for on the board, what are your thoughts in general about evaluations and assessments, as well as evaluations and assessments during these kind of crazy times as far as priorities? It would help to give you a speaking order. I'm like not on my game tonight. It's been a long day. So sorry, it will be Lisa and then Jeff and then Alexis.
Oh, thanks. So I remember when they passed the funding for the MAP testing, and I was kind of curious as to why they were passing it at that time, because it actually was during COVID. And but I am a little confused as to why they're doing it. Now, I have my own feeling about evaluations. Evaluations are done effectively. They help educators and support professionals get better at their jobs, right? So it gives them feedback. It allows them to grow as a professional. I don't believe that evaluation should be a gotcha thing. I don't think that that's the reason for them. I think it's detrimental. So when it comes to tying MAP testing to your evaluation, I don't think it's appropriate, especially during this time. I don't know how they're going to utilize that data to help you grow as a professional. So that's my thought process on it.
Thank you. Jeff?
Always be leery of somebody that's giving you a test and then is going to sell you the cure. And that's the majority of what our testing is. And, you know, I want to give a kind of a big pat on the back, and I think it's official that Stanford, if Stanford's dropping the ACT and SET, there must be something to that. My son right now is going through the recruiting process. Right now, he's sitting on 3 scholarships right now for football, and all of them are based off his SATs. And luckily, he had the resources that we got him the necessary training and stuff like that for those tests. But the majority of his training was to how to take the test, not what's in the test. So I think there's a lot of what she's saying is. With Lisa is there, I think the evaluation needs to be when the student comes in your class and leaves your class, what happened in between those times? Not that that student met some criteria that they were never going to meet to begin with. So unless we have that criteria, I think that, that's where we need to go with testing, not just you know, where MAP, the company selling you the test thinks that you should be.
Thank you. Alexis?
So in my 15 years of teaching, I've never come across a test that kids hate quite like they hate the MAP test. And I think I've figured out why. And it's because MAPS tests kids on concepts they've never learned. And sometimes those concepts can be years ahead of where they need to be. They do this to develop some sort of instructional plan or whatever it is that they tell you they're developing with this. But I can tell you, as someone who's worked with children for a very long time, most kids lack the ability to understand that. So what they do is they think that they are stupid. And no matter how many times you explain to them that the test doesn't work that way, because that's what we're told all the time as teachers, is we'll just explain it. I can explain something until I'm blue in the face. If the person who's listening to it can't receive the explanation and understand it, I could have Neil deGrasse Tyson sit up here and explain to me how black holes work. I will walk out of that discussion still not understanding how black holes work, because I don't understand a whole host of things that are going to get me to the point to understand what's coming out of his mouth. It's the same when you look at your average sixth grader in their MAP test. I'm really concerned that we had some sort of anonymous donation. I don't believe that this is something that just came to our community out of the goodness of somebody's heart. I don't like MAP tests. I've seen kids cry during MAP tests. I've seen good kids, compliant kids, throw their hands up in frustration, swear, say they don't want to do it. I've had kids time. So when you take your MAP test, you have to go at a certain pace or it will stop you. And my kids call it the sloth of doom. This picture of a sloth pops up. My kids were so industrious that some of them timed how long you needed to wait in between answers so that the sloth wouldn't pop up. And so they just clicked A and then waited for, I think it was like 45 seconds or a minute or something, and then clicked A again. There's no buy-in for these tests from kids. And when we cannot get 60,000 of our children to log in, we need to be asking ourselves why. What are we doing that is driving kids away? What are we doing that is turning their families off? And I can tell you right now, kids hate MAPs. And when kids tell us that they hate something, we need to listen to them, because ultimately the kids are our client. Right? I've heard in my 15 years as a teacher that we need to adopt a customer service version of education, to which I always respond, that's fine as long as we remember that the child is the customer. You know, these children, most teachers do not use MAPs. They give the assessment. You sit in a professional development where somebody, your admin, tells you to bring MAP scores. You do. You sit there, you give lip service, and then you move on with your day. And if this was taking a half of a day or whatever, it would be, you know, another thing that wasn't worth fighting about. But last year, it took some of my kids 4 days just to take my MAP test. So I think we need to really look at who we're giving access to our kids and why. And then to tie that to evaluations, it's the same type of thing that they do with the kids that they're doing to us. There's, I think it was Lisa who said, there's no way for us to learn and grow from these evaluations. What is it going to do? Make me a better teacher in a pandemic next time? I mean, ultimately, when you look at this, if I'm going to sit there and okay, so the next time a global pandemic hits and I have to do online teaching on the fly, I'll be better at it with this feedback. I mean, ultimately, it's insulting and it's killing what little morale we have left. And we need people to listen and hear that and do something about it.
Thank you.
Okay, the speaking order for the next question is Jeff, Alexis, and then Lisa. And the question is, currently there are some lawsuits against the district regarding special needs students, and we know you wouldn't be able to comment or speculate on the lawsuits themselves, but how would you help improve this situation if you were a trustee right now?
I think that's our when we talk about the COVID, I think that needs to be the first thing that we address before we start, you know, mass bringing people back in. I think we need to take into account our special needs first, and and their needs before we start just, you know, let's open the doors to everything. Let's take care of them first. I don't blame the parents of the special needs kids right now, because I do, you know, that is where my wife and our family, that's where we come out of, is the special needs, or, you know, what she focuses in on. And we know that some of the steps that are not being taken for their IEPs, and that does put the district in a lot of hot water. And if you're not doing that, you know, just like we as union people, we got to stand up for our rights. And it's their, you know, it's their kids and their rights. And I back them for what they're doing. I just hope that they can come to a compromise before it costs the school district a large amount of money.
Thank you. Alexis?
So here's where I think a little bit of foresight would have really done us a lot of good. We closed school in mid-March, and I think that, you know, we should have had a working group of CEFs, of special education teachers, of special education parents, and then ESPs who work in special ed, working on how we can best serve our special needs kids if we can't go back. That didn't happen. So now we're kind of left with where we're at right now. My daughter has an IEP. I know that at the school level, they're doing the best they can to implement it. But it's not, you know, 100% smooth sailing. I can't imagine how lost some of our parents who are dealing with physically disabled and extremely, you know, mentally handicapped and disabled students are feeling right now. They're probably feeling completely abandoned. I would say what we need to do is talk to people like Jeff's wife. We need to get a bunch of CEFs. We need to get a bunch of special education teachers into a room, and we need to ask them how we can fix this, because what we're doing isn't working. And I'm fearful that as COVID continues, and if we are not able to open up the schools quickly, that, you know, how many lawsuits we're going to be facing as parents who are possibly being patient in the moment, thinking, you know, this isn't going to last very long. Will that patience run out as the school year continues? So I think we really need the professional opinion of the people who are on the ground doing the work, because, you know, some of the IEP revisions that are coming in just aren't feasible. And you know, people are being directed to put things in there from central office that don't make any sense. So again, ground up. The people on the ground know what they're doing.
Great, thank you. Lisa?
So I come from this as a mom who had children with IEPs and had special ed services. And I understand how tough it is during the pandemic. I agree with Alexis wholeheartedly that we need to get speech paths and special ed teachers and the folks, the psychiatrists, in a Zoom call or a Google Meet and talk about how best to handle it. I think, I know that the trustees are concerned right now about the special ed kids. And I know that parents are calling for special ed kids to come back to school because they truly need the services. And I get it. I get it, because I could not have given my sons the services that they needed. So I understand the frustration, but I think that as much as parents can kind of understand that we can't give the IEP special needs help that they need, they also would like to have help themselves. So I think talking to those who know what they're talking about would be great, because if you had sent me some of the speech and language stuff for my eldest that I have seen given to parents that have kids with that special need, I don't know that I could have done it, but if someone taught me, I might have been able to.
Thank you. Carmen?
So Jeff kind of read our mind on the last one, I think, and we've gotten your opinion on how you guys think how effective the current board is at times. But as a body, we're going to go Alexis, then Lisa, and Jeff on this one. But as a board of trustees, what do you all think could be improved? And along with that, what unique skill or experience will you bring to the board that can help with that?
Okay, so I think that we need to bring a fundamental level of respect to everybody. I see right now the way the current board operates. As a person who attends meetings regularly, they're not very inviting. It's almost as if a lot of the language on the dais is used to confuse people, to kind of create this image is, the board is not very approachable. It's very difficult. I know many parents have said they feel really intimidated. I think that's kind of my superpower. I've taught middle school for 15 years, and it takes a certain personality to do that. I do not mind being yelled at. I do not mind when people get angry with me, when they swear, when, it comes with the territory. So I think when you have angry people, you can either dig in, like angry people in front of you, you can either dig in your heels and you can say, I'm right and I'm the one in charge, and I'm going to prove to all of you that I'm the one in charge. So that when you leave, your issue isn't resolved, but you are aware that I am in charge. Or we can sit down and we can try to come to some sort of agreement, even if that means some tempers flare. Sometimes I think I'm a let's fight it out, let's argue, let's get to the root of it, and then we can move on. I think that the board needs to improve its communication. I think that right now I follow this. This is my hobby, which, I mean, that's kind of sad, but this is my hobby. I go to these meetings, I watch all of it, and sometimes I'm confused. And I have to imagine that if I'm a mom and I have 3 or 4 kids who are all fairly young, and I'm trying to run a family and work a job, and I'm trying to tune into a school board meeting, I have no clue what's happening. And I think, we need to make a real concentrated effort to simplify things, to put it into language that everybody's going to understand, and then make efforts to get everybody's input, even if that's uncomfortable. And I think that's what I bring to the board is a certain amount of approachability. Again, I'm really passionate and fiery, and I like passionate, fiery people. And I think that, a lot of we have so many advocates for our kids in the making. How many moms would march with us on Carson City and demand, funding for schools? If only we would invite those people in and not try to be the smartest person in the room. So.
Thank you. Lisa?
So this is a really interesting question, because I have watched a very functioning board for the last 5 years in my job. So I think what I bring is a vision of a functioning board. Another thing is that I have a background in interest-based negotiations. And so I analyze and make sure that I understand the interests of the people on the board. There are very different interests on our board. And even just last Wednesday, when they were talking about how they were going to have public speakers and who was going to answer the public speakers, it got pretty heated over the fact that they were just trying to figure out, should the superintendent answer them by email, the public speaker, or how is that going to happen? And I think that just knowing that the interest is to have folks' voice in the room is really important. And everyone knows where I come from. And I feel like I can bring just that understanding of, I'm going to find out what your interest is and make sure that you know what mine is. I think no one knows what each other's interests are, and they're making assumptions, and it's not accurate. I also think that on our board, there seems to be a hierarchy. And I don't think that that's what balanced governance is. And so I think by understanding how balanced governance works is critical to the board being functional. Right now, they just pick and choose what they want to use, and decide how Robert's Rules of Order work. And that's not how this is done. So I think that understanding is also a positive to bring to the board.
Thank you very much. And Jeff.
Well, I guess obviously I'll piggyback off of what I said before, and I'll try not to be too derogatory towards people that are on there now, but I'm the business manager of a 2,000 member construction union, and I survive every month. I sit on boards for our health fund not against contractors, and I'll say that's what I want to get across with contractors. We sit on there as a team, and we do what's best for our members, what our businesses, and things might get contentious, but we always remain friends, and we all have the common goal in mind. And here's some rules that I have, and some of the union leaders here will know what I'm talking about. Some of the rules that I have on my union boards, on my union trust funds, on my union trade school board is don't throw the Department of Labor in my face as an excuse. That's what we like to do when we don't want to tackle a tough problem. Well, the Department of Labor won't like that. Well, that's not what the Department of Labor says, so stop that. We're going to tackle the problem. And I think on this board, what this board has is an attorney problem. Whenever they don't want to make a decision, they say, well, the attorney doesn't let us do that. Well, the attorney's not there to let you do that. They're an advisory on the board, and it's your job as the trustee to do the work. And what we like to hide behind is that we're going to break an open meeting law. Well, the whole premise, when we talk about law, you talk about the nature of the law, what the law was intended to do. It wasn't to give you A, B, C, and D, even though it does. But open meeting means that you are to have discussion in front of the public. That's the intent of the law. Discuss in front of the public. And there are rules to go along with it, but to be shut down to say, well, you're breaking open meeting laws. No, you're having an open discussion in front of the public. And they were allowed to be part of that. But those are just some nitpicky things that in the last couple months that we've seen. But I'll go back to there needs to be some respect. I don't even think you need to take it to a friendship level. There needs to be respect that trustee is representing the people in their district, and you're representing the people in your district. And you know what? You may not always win, but you're allowed to give your opinion in a respectful manner and walk out of the room still liking somebody.
Thank you. As we wrap things up, we first want to thank all of our candidates for their time and thoughtful responses. And we'd like to offer each of you a minute and to give us some closing remarks. And then we have something at the end right after that. But we will go Lisa, and then Jeff, and then Alexis.
So I want to thank you for having this forum. This was really great, and I appreciate everything that you all do. I want to let people know that they can know more about me on my website, lisaguzmanfortrustee.com. They can follow me on Facebook and on Twitter. On Twitter, my handle is @lmguzmannv. And I just want people to know that I truly believe in the education in the Clark County School District. I think that the teachers and support professionals put their hearts and souls into making sure that every child succeeds. And I just want to make sure that they have an advocate on the board. And so I want to thank you again for having me. And I look forward to working with you all.
Thank you. Jeff?
Just as I'm kind of following Facebook a little bit. I want to address one question. There's one that says, "How about the dads?" And I like that. So I'm hopefully that I get to stick up for all the dads in our district, and that's bringing a dad perspective. I think more dads need to get involved. More families as a whole need to get involved. So I appreciate this forum. I appreciate you guys doing this. Appreciate you guys being, I think, I don't know why teachers can't shut it off on weekends. I think you guys tomorrow night or on Saturday night, you need to have a double shot in that margarita for what you've gone through over the last 2 weeks. And I've done this in past, I made the mistake in past forums. We're not just teachers, we're teachers, support staff, and everybody else that's involved. I got in trouble last time, I forgot about them. So I appreciate everything that is going on. I appreciate the stress that you guys have been under and doing the job that you've done with both hands tied behind your back and still rising to whatever this is we're doing right now. It's being done at a really good clip, and I appreciate it. I want to put a shout out. I want you guys please do not pull out every hair in your head over Canvas. We in the trade school, ours is called Total Track, and we implemented ours about 12 years ago. And for the first 2 years of using that, this is what happened. So but after we got past that and me throwing laptops across the room, things like that, it got to a place where it was a tool that really gave me back a lot of my time. I wasn't doing a lot of grading. I wasn't, it was already in the system. It was a really good tool for me when it came, after I got the hang of it. So please be patient with it. And I'm telling you, in 2 years from now, it's going to be your best friend.
Thank you. Alexis?
Thank you guys so much for having this forum tonight. It's always nice to talk shop with other teachers. I want to encourage people to visit my website, alexissalt.com. And what I really wanted to get across is that I am for teachers, and I am for kids, and I am for their families. I know that sometimes I can come across a little fiery and passionate, but I think that that's what we need right now, because some things are really worth fighting for. And I think your kids are worth fighting for. I think that my profession is worth fighting for. And, if you want to join me, if you like what we're doing, and if you want to get involved, you can visit our website and tell some of your friends that it's time for teachers to really start taking back control of what it means to be an expert in their profession. And I am running as the expert in my race. So I want to thank you again, and have a great night, everybody.
Thanks, Alexis. Before we say goodnight, ESEA and NEA of Southern Nevada want to thank everyone who submitted questions for their input, along with those who have joined us in the Zoom tonight and others watching from the Facebook live feed. This is going to be a very important election for our school district. Now that you've had the opportunity to get to know our candidates, we need your help. We need you to volunteer to make some calls, drop some flyers door to door, donate, join a social media team, just do something. This is how we get our champions of public education elected. Pick one, two, or all of the candidates here tonight, but pick at least one and do what you can to help. Thanks again to our endorsed candidates, and we hope that all of you have a great rest of your evening and have a safe Labor Day weekend. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.